right, hello everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the Brighter Black Futures podcast. This episode will be aired just in time for the International Day to Eliminate Racism on March 21st. So today we're going to talk about racism, but from a different angle than we usually hear it from. Usually what we hear about is the external manifestation, the way it impacts the lives of racialized people when they enter healthcare spaces, education spaces, the justice system, for example, and how it limits your lives in really material ways. And today, instead, what I want to talk about is something that isn't so much about that kind of impact, but about what happens to us on a psychological level, a mindset level, how having to live in spaces steeped in ABR and all other types of racism affect us internally, and what we can do to help combat that as we move through predominantly white spaces, and particularly Western cultures. This affects, of course, all racialized peoples, but today we're going to focus primarily on Black folks, which is why I have two guests with me today who also happen to be Black like me. I'm sure you couldn't tell. My dear friends, Lydia Collins and Kevin Reigh. Welcome to you both to the show.
Yo, yo,
Thank
yo.
you.
All right. So what we're going to get into first, for the sake of the audience, is I'm just going to talk about myself one more time because it's only the second podcast. My name is Bisa. I live and work in Toronto, Canada. I am the founder of Brighter Black Futures, which is a company that was started to help create programming, online programming for Black kids to help them mitigate the mindset impact of ABR in their lives in school and beyond. So that's me in a nutshell. And now my friends can tell you a little bit about them, just so you know where they are in the world and what they're up to. Okay, so I'll ask Lydia to introduce herself first.
Hello, everyone. As Bisa said, I'm Lydia Collins. I'm a UK born Jamaican. I grew up mostly in California where my family immigrated. And I am excited because I am currently finishing up my PhD in transformative social change. So I am a social justice warrior through and through. And so I'm excited to be here with Bisa and Kevin today.
And Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin Reigh, born in Kingston, Jamaica, raised in the Kingdom of Scarborough. Brap, brap, brap.
Pra,
Uh,
pra.
um, yeah, I've done a lot of things and worn many hats in my life, but, spent the bulk of the last 15 years working in the arts sector and not-for-profit and cultural sector. I write, used to perform. I, work in various arts administration and management capacities. And yeah, excited for this conversation.
Awesome. Thank you again to both of you for joining me. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today. And now that we've got the basic introductions out of the way, I'm going to ask you my first question. So, based on what we've all shared about where we live and what we're doing in the world, it's safe to say we all grew up and went to school in spaces that were predominantly white spaces. In my case, though I had a particularly fierce and protective mother who did her best to show me from racist incidents, I realized probably a few years ago, I'm 52 now, probably about 3, 4 years ago, I realized just how much the impact of those things affected me mentally, how it had me playing small and shying away from doing things and feeling underconfident, even when I should be well confident to do a thing. And it's taken a lot for me to start to show up in the ways I know I can. And I guess to the fullness of my ability, I'm still working on that very hard. And I want to ask you guys, do you think that being in predominantly white spaces as you grew up in your formative years has shaped how you see yourself and how you move through the world in similar ways? And if so, how? What are the direct manifestations you see in your lives? And I'll start with Kevin to answer that question.
Um, I think this is such a big question in some ways, but the simplest, most straightforward thing is yes, it has had a toxic and deleterious effect on my psychological and emotional well-being. Um, and similar to you, Bisa, in ways that I don't think I fully understood and realized until I got much older in life and like reflected back on the kind of things that occurred to me. I don't want to get into specific stories because I have way too many stories, but the situations in my life of um, you know, whether consciously or not, making myself feel smaller, lesser, whatever, to try to fit in to what was expected me in, predominantly white spaces. Also, to be able to compare and contrast that to, the ways what I felt internally, emotionally, and psychologically when we made our trips to Jamaica to visit, right? And so then to have the experience of being in a space where everyone looked like me, the police officers looked like me, you walk into a bank, everybody in the bank looked like me, educators looked like me. And, that was such a nurturing and comforting feeling. And, you know, I think maybe even the simplest way to sum it all up is just never feeling safe, like fully safe in any space that I was in, whether that was at school, whether that was at work. There were just limited spaces where I felt safe to like truly just breathe and exhale and be my full and entire self.
Yeah, that whole psychological safety piece is so big. Wow. Lydia.
So yes, without a doubt, I think when you're in spaces that are predominantly white, you learn to code switch, which in fact isn't really just learning to appease white people and make them comfortable with your blackness, is how I see it. So it's not really code switching, it's make white people feel good, and let them feel safe. And I recognize my privilege. I've worked in federal, state, and local government over my career. And so in those spaces, one of few Black women, Black people, and then even more so, foreign born Black individual in those spaces. And in academia, as a faculty member at several universities in California and on the East Coast, these were all white spaces. And I always saw myself as the other. I was different. White people are curious and interested, yet they're still fearful. Slightly less so, but still fearful. And it took me until my mid 30s to begin to recognize that I was modifying my behavior in order to have others, like Kevin mentioned, feel safe. It was about their emotional safety and well being as opposed to mine. I wanted them to be comfortable and at ease with my presence in the room because that's what I was taught. But meanwhile, others were not doing the same for me. So I had to learn to be more comfortable in my own skin and to just allow others to sit in their discomfort because that's how I live most of my days, being the only one in many of the spaces that I'm in for work, school, and just the community that I live in.
Okay, so we've all had very similar experiences in that regard, like changing how you show up, how you move through space, modifying it and making it smaller. That's very clear. For me, that I think the biggest piece is my voice. I'm only now finding ways to write and speak the way I really want to the audience I want to with, and not that I don't still think about it, but definitely trying to gear what I'm saying to a Black audience and center us. I want to ask you, what is the biggest way you think that what we just talked about, this lack of psychological safety and feeling you needed to placate, make white people feel safe? How did that show up in your life? Or what is the thing that you changed the most in yourself? I'd love to know. Who wants to go first? Lydia. I guess he's pointing to Lydia. I love that. The pointing.
Okay, no, that's fine. This is a powerful question. Okay. I'm like, woo. There are so many things that I had to unlearn that were taught to me as a youth. Jamaican culture and just like being respectful and being in spaces and making yourself small, unseen, not heard, just do what's expected of you, but do more because you should be proud that you're in the space. Um, it's this whole idea that we have to make others feel safe and accept us. That's one of the main things that I have to unlearn. That I was taught it's best to remain silent and just be happy to be allowed in these spaces and don't say or do anything that is disruptive. And even that word disruptive, right? Like that terminology is something that I find problematic as it makes it seem as like how you mentioned, you finding your voice, like my voice wasn't important if every time I spoke, it's seen as disruptive or problematic or it's bad or I'm that angry Black woman in the space when I've simply said, can we turn down the AC? Right? Like how? Um, so I think for me it was learning to speak up for myself and bringing to the attention of those in the room that something that was said or done was anti-Black or racist and that it was unacceptable. And, when we can't do that, that's when it becomes problematic because you can't open up that dialogue about what's happening. And so it's the relearning of you have a voice, number one, your voice is important. And especially when I was working in government and academia, where there are so few Black and Brown young people that exist, and they are consistently struggling and looking for mentors and role models in those spaces, I realized how important it was for me to be that example differently than what I had learned for the BIPOCs that I saw coming up under me as someone who was educating and mentoring and just being a person of support. So I think the main thing is to set that new example of being authentically true to oneself, um, and showing up that way. Like, just one quick story about the whole idea of things as simple as decorating your office in an academic setting, or in any office setting, can the attention that that can bring. I recall hanging a curtain in my office that said, I am Black, woman, beautiful, magic, intelligence, resilience, love, innovative, powerful, influential, and unapologetic. And this was my way of letting the BIPOC students who would pass by know, like, this is the place that you can come to. I am here, see me. And also a way for me to gain some positivity every time I walked into this all white space, right? Like claiming this as mine. This is my space. I am all of these things, regardless of all of the negative or whatever is coming at me on a daily basis, because it was like a battlefield, right? On a daily basis. And even just that, where there were rumors and murmurs and complaints sent to the dean of, and it's like, why? Because what in that sense is what there is not true. And I remember telling people whenever they made comments to me, backhanded, side-handed, or directly, I would say, okay, so clearly you didn't read to the bottom. It says unapologetic. And that was it. I had learned this is my voice, this is how I'm going to use it, and I'm not going to allow you to make me feel just out of sorts because you're uncomfortable with seeing an image of a beautiful Black woman and the words that are saying how powerful I am as a being. So, yeah.
Loving all of that. Okay, Kevin, your turn.
Yeah, I think my answer is going to be similar in some ways. You know, to you know, to a significant degree, I would say I'm still in a process of unlearning. I would say there's still vestiges of like the programming. I can't tell lies, because I'm still hyper aware of when I enter into certain spaces, you know, who's there, who's not there, who's looking, who's not looking. Like that still happens. However, what has definitely changed is that a kind of uh fuller embrace of like who I am, my experience, and the beauty that comes with that. And no longer um no longer really concerning myself with like the kind of external perceptions, right? Um, I'm a man who, I wouldn't say heavily tattooed, but I have a lot of tattoos, and Bisa, when we first met, I had a big rough beard and dreads, and that, for a lot of people that has certain connotations and comes with certain expectations. And, I used to move through spaces and, I had friends and actually a cousin of mine, I remember him saying he was always amazed at how watching me move, like say we're in a retail environment, how people, their preconceived notions of who I am or what I was about because of how I looked, it shifted the minute I started talking to them and they realized, oh, this person has a specific amount, like a sense or education, whatever the case may be. You could see the instant shift there. But one of the, and I had those dreads for a long time, and it was it was nourishing for my soul in so many ways, but at the same time, it came with some burdens. It came with those burdens of like people's projected expectations, and you know, I eventually reached a point where the weight of those burdens, and frankly, some of my own expectations, I think, it was no longer the right fit for me. However, I had a series of experiences in the workplace of trying really hard to like modulate all those things. And so, I would, either I didn't get tattoos I wanted because I love body art, or I would keep them covered in a certain way. And then, uh, switching up how my hair was. And then even once I did remove the locks, still really concerned about people's perceptions of my body, essentially. And then there came a point when all these opportunities, frankly, I was not getting certain kind of opportunities, and really killing myself to fit into this particular framework to try to access these opportunities. And I just said, you know what? To hell with this stuff. I'm just going to be me. And if I'm going to be miserable, I might as well be miserable, like being fully myself anyway. Right. And, I'm not one of those people who has like a very like, um, I don't know, for lack of better terms, I call it a granola or airy fairy kind of like, oh, you switch up your energy and everything falls into place. But I switched up my energy and things started to fall into place. So maybe I do believe it. I'm just in denial. And Lydia, you invoked this idea of like modeling for future generations, of black-bodied, black bodies. And I have a 9 to 5 job that has a significant public facing component. And I'm always aware of when I move in those spaces to just fully be myself. And if that means, I'm dressed a certain way, or I'm a man who, in Bisa, this, I perpetually have my toothpicks. I have my toothpicks. If that means I show up at this event and I got a toothpick and, my kerchief, and I'm talking a certain way, that's how I'm talking and that's how I'm moving. And I think I do that because it's comfortable. That's just me. That's me being me. But also, I'm also aware that it potentially sends a message to, any young Black folks entering into that space that, hey, here's I see that man in that position, and he looks like one of my uncles. He could be my uncle, and I just think that's a powerful message. I didn't have enough of those when I was younger.
Okay, so I'm loving all these examples. They're such beautiful examples. And I love that there's forward thinking for modeling for people younger than you to be in certain spaces that you're occupying, work-wise and otherwise. And I just want to add my little bit to that. I don't work in a corporate space, and when I listen to you guys talk, I'm like, woo, yeah. But I'm also like, oh, I want hugs. Because it sounds like a really heavy burden and an extension of what I experienced in school that I don't have to experience now because I luckily work for myself. But I decided to start Bright Black Futures in 2022. And since starting it and being in the community at vendor markets, selling my shirts and talking to people about the messages on my hoodies and shirts that are designed to uplift, empower, whether you're the happy Black person, the loving Black person, or the I'm so angry, I need to let you know the person, has been so beautiful to me. Yes, Lydia's wearing one of my shirts right now. That made me feel uncomfortable. And I'm so glad I did it because it's so soul nourishing. And hearing you guys talking about the conscious choice to move like that, like it really drives home the fact that we had to choose something different as children, as young people, to survive in the spaces we're in. So like just also like holding space for that truth that you entered the space, you probably started off being yourself and then slowly limited and put into a box that didn't quite fit that we're only now breaking out of as adults. And thank God we can, because some people never have the opportunity, unfortunately. But with that in mind, helping young people and our younger selves who had to change the way we were moving. If you could go back in time right now and talk to your younger self, whatever time you think you might have been the most confined by what was going on around you, what would you say to them now, on knowing what you know now, and at this time when you are trying to shake off all the things you learned to keep yourself. I'll let Lydia go first this time.
Okay, I think it's always stand true in who you are and what you believe in, and recognize the beauty in your authentic self. Because I think that's what it boils down to. Like not knowing that I am a beautiful being who deserves to be in spaces and have voice and to occupy the spaces in my authenticity, in my like just show up as me, right? Like not having to perpetuate any kind of stereotype or behaviors in order to appease others. And I think if I had known that sooner, it would have changed a lot of my trajectory. But I also recognize that the path that I took is what helped me be who I am. And so I'm not opposed to it, but I think just if I could tell my younger self, just really know you're beautiful just as you. So be you. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Would you like to add your
Yeah.
take?
I feel like that last part, Lydia stole my answer, because I was I was thinking to myself, yeah, if I could talk to, myself 20, 25 years ago, I'd be like, you're a beautiful black man, you are beautiful. And like you you are more than enough. Your blackness is not a problem. It is, a gift. You know, it is amazing. Like I I love who I am. I love my blackness. I love my Jamaicanness. I love all of that. And yeah, that's what I would tell myself. You know what? Like, in a more practical term, if you want to eat that fried chicken in front of the white people, go ahead and eat that fried chicken. Do you know what I mean? Like, just eat that fried chicken, right? Yeah, that's it.
I still love that last bit because I'm going to be very honest. I'm 52 and I probably will still not eat watermelon in front of white people. Like that is still something like, "Oh, can't quite get there yet." So thank you for saying that, Kevin. I need to work on me in that regard. And I think what I would say, in answer to that question, well, I know what I would say in answer to the question, is the stories they tell you about yourself to make you believe you're less than are absolute bullshit. Those stories are told to you to support a system that isn't trying to serve you and wants to stand on your back to allow certain other people to have all kinds of privilege. And discomfort isn't harm. So speak up and share your truth whenever you can. That's what I'd say to my younger self. That's what I'm trying to do these days as well. And also then, of course, eat watermelon for the white people.
I love that discomfort is not, say that again, discomfort is not
Discomfort is
harm.
not harm. And I
Yeah,
think, and
discomfort
what
is not harm.
we know that dominant culture folks are so used to being centered that anytime they feel uncomfortable about race issues, it is a harmful situation. And I'm going to tangent here on that topic. I'm so tired of people coming to me and saying, I don't understand why they're supporting Donald Trump. I just like it's so like why would they? And I say it's white supremacy. I could say it just like that. I could say it massage the message, and it's just the blinking and looking. And the next week, the same person will ask me the same thing. Like just there's no space for certain things because you just can't hear it. God bless them, but that's not for us to fix or solve.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I'm going to ask one more question. That's kind of celebratory question. You kind of already answered it, but what is one thing you're consistently doing in your life to embrace your blackety blackest self and show up as fully and authentically as you each and every day in your life? Kevin, you can go first.
Oh, I don't know if there's a single thing I can think of other than, I guess, yeah, referring back to, things I mentioned earlier, and just like, you know, being like being true to my wants, my needs, my desires, and my experiences, many of those things rooted specifically in my immigrant experience, my Black immigrant experience, you know what I mean? So just being true to all of that and knowing that there's value and worth in it. My narrative, my history is not less than anybody else's, you know, and just embracing that at all times.
Miss Lydia?
Well, so I live in a county with about less than 4% Black people. Ooh. So I can be at work for weeks and not see anyone who looks like me in those spaces as I move throughout the entire county in my role. And so I surround myself in spaces with positive messages about Blackness. So I wear pro-Black shirts all the time, almost every day. It makes white people at work nervous. And as we heard from Bisa, just comfort is not harm. But what it is, it's my ability to look down and it's like a personal armor and to just let me just be cloaked with something beautiful and affirming to help me move throughout my day with positivity and to also not like take on all that negativity that comes at me being in a community where there aren't many who look like me and the way that we're treated. And I think it's also an indicator for those who don't know me and haven't had those interactions that others where I may have gathered them politely and respectfully. And so people can tell from the shirts I'm wearing, this is the energy I'm bringing. So careful what you say or how you say it. No, don't touch my hair. That's a real thing that happened to me several months ago. How is that still happening? I don't understand. I was like, there are several books I can recommend. There's too much information out there. But I'm also surround myself only with those who can fully accept me as all of the intersectionalities of who I am. There are folks that I have no longer interact with because they're like, I like you, except when you get really intense about like when you wear that blackity black lips, black nose hoodie, it makes me uncomfortable. And I'm like, well, guess what? I'm going to continue to wear my hoodie so we can continue to do what we do separately. And that's okay. And they look at me, well, no, I'm not saying I'm racist. No one said that. I just said, I'm going to continue to be me. You do you over there, and I'm going to do me in my warm, cozy, black affirming hoodie the way that I want to. And so my friends and loved ones, regardless of how they identify racially, they know me. And they know that I'm going to say all of the things. If I've had interaction at work with some white person that says something rude to me, if I'm talking to a loved one who happens to be white, I'm like, if another white lady says something crazy to me today, you already know this is what happened. And they're like, oh, really? No. Da, da, da. They know that I'm going to bring that same energy regardless of who it is that I'm talking to. And I also do affirmations almost daily. I'm working on making it daily because I try to feed myself with positive messaging because I'm constantly being, it's like walking through a minefield on a daily basis. You kind of, because I'm still like Kevin said, we're still unlearning things, right? So I'm tiptoeing at times because I know in certain spaces to expect a little bit more than usual. So that and weekly sessions with a mental health provider, let me tell you, that is the truth. Too many BIPOC Black folks don't believe in going to listen. I have worked through some things. Being a Black foreign born disabled woman, working in spaces that I have, uh, I wouldn't be able to be here with as much positivity and confidence and just assuredness because it was so important for me to heal and continue to heal the wounds that I had because I'm raising my own daughter who needs to have a positive example and I don't want her silenced. I want her to be in a space of a frame of mind where she feels confident to just like I mean this. Like this is me. And I'm gonna show up as me and I'm confident and comfortable and respectful, but also not shunning or shying away from the beauty that is her. And how better to do that than to be the example, right? And so it's been a lot of work and we have these conversations. And so I think it's important that, I share stories when things happen, I don't hold them um, I talk to someone about them, whether it's a counselor, a friend, or someone. But I think it's also good to not hold that negative energy because I used to hold it, and then I would be like, and then one little thing would happen, I'd be like, oh, okay, this is not about me. And I've got friends like Bisa who constantly remind me, okay, that person's behavior is not about you. That's them. And so having people like Bisa and Kevin, like that you can just be like, wait, help me understand what just happened here is makes all the difference. So yeah, surround myself with good people, constant feeding of positive messages, and scaring white people with my t-shirts.
Heavy on the scaring white people. All right, let me add my 2 cents to this, piggyback on what you guys said. Oh, what I am doing, I made a commitment to myself way back in 2020 during the BLM protest, the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd. um, in that time, I was listening to on Instagram, listened to live by Aston Berry, who's known as a collectress online, and she asked the question, "Who told you had to be only half yourself in your relationships with people who don't look like you?" You're speaking specifically to Black people, and that was like a game-changing moment for me. And from that moment on, I was like, I'm going to be my whole and authentic self in all the spaces I occupy. And it is not perfect yet, like we've said in many different ways, the three of us, we're also working towards that, but that is my commitment to myself all the time. So I am making the Blackity Black shirts that Lydia's wearing, various styles. And that's a way to get my voice out there when things happen these days that make me uncomfortable, that are racially insensitive all the way over to full on racist. I try and speak in the moment. If I can't, I come back around and address it later. I've had some friends who, we've had some tearful conversations and almost ended the friendships. Like, if you can't hear this part of what my life, you can't be here. And the good people stay. And when you show up like that, you develop a community that's really gorgeous and diverse, and full of people who just happen to be white, as opposed to are embracing all the whiteness and the privilege that they carry because of their skin color. And so that's a really good thing. I think being your authentic self and showing up, embracing that, brings better people into your life, as far as I'm concerned. And also, I am so done with predominantly white spaces. Sometimes I have to be in them. There's no escape. On any chance I can to be in a diverse space that is super welcoming and very inclusive, for real, for real. Not just putting lipstick on the pig, so to speak. I'm in that space and showing up and adding to it, and that's how I'm embracing my super black, y'all. So there you go. All right. Anything else you guys would love to add or say, or you didn't get to say before we close this out? Kevin?
No, not really, but I want to give you a shout out for, what you're doing with the Brighter Black Futures. I love the t-shirts. And as bearing witness to the evolution is like a beautiful thing. And yeah, I love Black people. That's it.
So do I. So weird. Lydia.
Oh my goodness, I love Black people too. So yeah, I get, like Kevin said, I really just want to say to these, like, watching you over the past few years, like the it's like the butterfly, right? Like just coming to full blown beauty and flight, and watching you soar with this, and the whole idea, like, again, being an educator and having being a mom, right? Having my own daughter and younger siblings that I embrace and want to, just having you as that positive, like, auntie in their lives, and them seeing the work that you're doing, and being fully supported by you, and seeing what you're trying to do for other young Black babies who don't always have the Kevins, the Bisas, and the others who are able to be honest about the journeys that we've had, and where we are in those journeys now. That this is not a journey that has ended. I am not at the end of the road, right? Like, this is a continuous growth process, as we continue to learn things. So thank you for this opportunity, and for allowing me to bear witness to what the beauty that unfolds, that is you.
Well, thank you both for celebrating me. I appreciate you. And it's good to have people witness what I'm going through and growing through. It's as I evolve this project. And to all you out there in podcast land listening and watching, thank you so much for joining us today. I'll definitely be back next week with another podcast and a brand new topic. So I hope that you'll stay tuned. All right, guys. Thank you again so much for joining us, and take care.
Peace.